All right, let's dive in. Today we're going way back in time to 12th century Italy to explore the life of St. Francis of Assisi.
Oh, yeah, St. Francis.
And I think a lot of people know him as the patron saint of animals. But his story is so much more than that. It's full of twists and turns and really radical choices.
And timeless lessons.
Timeless lessons, yeah. And to help guide us on this journey, we've got a great YouTube video from the Christian channel called St. Francis, a remarkable journey of inspiration and transformation.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You know, this is a story that I think speaks to a lot of people today.
Okay.
And it speaks to people who are searching for meaning in life, people who are trying to stay true to their values, and really just the power of simple living, which is something that a lot of people are thinking about these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to really kind of get into the story, let's set the stage.
Okay.
St. Francis was born into a wealthy family in Italy. And, you know, he was known to be super charismatic.
Yeah.
And
Quite the party animal.
quite the party animal. Early on, he was dreaming of knighthood and glory.
Right.
Which, you know, was kind of the thing to do back then, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting, you know, his father actually nicknamed him the Frenchman, hoping that he would become a shrewd businessman.
Wow, what a...
Little ironic, isn't it?
Kind of ironic, yeah. Like setting him up for something completely different than what he ended up doing.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, you know, how much of that early desire for knighthood was really just that same need for external validation that we all grapple with.
Totally.
You know, still to this day, like, where do I fit in? What am I supposed to do?
What's my purpose, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so as we were saying, you know, he really does kind of go on a journey in his life.
Yeah.
He actually sets off on this military campaign trying to achieve knighthood.
Right.
But he gets captured.
Wow.
And imprisoned.
Not exactly the adventure he was hoping for.
Not at all.
No, not at all.
Not the glorious adventure he was hoping for.
Yeah, it's worth thinking about, you know, what kind of impact did that have on him psychologically? You know, a year in captivity.
Wow.
Facing, you know, the realities of war.
Yeah.
I mean, that could have been the thing that shifted him to a more spiritual path.
Yeah. Definitely could have been kind of a wake-up call.
Yeah, a wake-up call for sure.
So, you know, he comes home and he's not this triumphant knight.
Right.
He's this defeated prisoner.
Yeah.
And that's when things start to change.
Things start to change.
She has these profound encounters that completely change his trajectory.
Okay.
The first one is with a leper. And, you know, back then, lepers were completely shunned by society.
Yeah, they were outcasts.
But instead of recoiling from this person, he embraces him.
Wow, that's powerful.
Really defying those societal norms.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then not too long after this, he has this encounter with a speaking crucifix in a dilapidated church.
So he's hearing Christ himself.
Yeah, and Christ is urging him to repair my church.
That must have been overwhelming.
I can't imagine what that would have felt like.
Yeah, that'd be intense.
And
so what happens?
So he takes this command very literally.
Okay.
Starts selling his father's fabrics to raise money for the church repairs.
I'm guessing his father was not happy.
His father was furious, accused him of theft.
Oh, wow.
Labeled him as mad.
Really?
And so it all culminates in this very public confrontation in front of the town bishop.
Oh, my gosh.
Francis is brought there by his father, and his father is demanding that he renounce his inheritance.
So he's really trying to cut him off.
Yeah, and what does Francis do?
What does he do?
He strips naked.
What? Yeah.
Right there.
That's crazy.
Renounces not only his worldly possessions,
wow,
but his earthly father.
He's making a statement.
Yeah, proclaiming his allegiance to our Father who art in heaven.
So he's choosing God over everything.
Yeah, what a spectacle.
What a spectacle.
Can you imagine the scandal?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think was going through his mind at that moment?
I mean, it seems like a real commitment to this new path that he's chosen.
Yeah.
He's shedding his old life, literally, embracing poverty and devotion.
And he's not just talking the talk either.
Right.
From this point on, he lives a life of radical simplicity.
Okay.
Sleeping outdoors.
Wow.
Begging for food, working with his hands.
He's really living it.
And he takes biblical teachings to the extreme.
Okay.
Like there's this story where he chases down a thief to give him more.
Really?
He's like, wait, take this too.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible.
Yeah, so he's really living these teachings.
You know, you can see the appeal of detaching from material possessions.
Yeah.
Like we see that today with minimalist movements.
Yeah.
This idea that you find freedom when you detach.
It's all about what you're holding on to.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he took it further than most, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure.
He refused to even touch money, compared coins to pebbles on the road.
Wow.
Obstacles to be avoided.
So what was his reasoning there?
Well, he believed that possessions inevitably lead to this need for protection, laws, hierarchies, and ultimately result in a loss of love and freedom.
So possessions equal a loss of freedom.
That's what he believed.
Interesting.
Yeah. So do you think that holds any weight today?
I mean, it definitely makes you think about our modern obsession with material wealth.
Right.
And how that impacts our well-being and our relationships.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And you know what's so compelling about this?
What?
Is that he lived it every single day.
Yeah. He wasn't just saying these things.
Exactly. He was embodying it.
Yeah. Which brings us to another fascinating aspect of his life.
Okay.
This connection with nature.
Right. He's known for his love of animals.
Yeah. And it seems to go beyond just appreciating their beauty.
Absolutely. He viewed all creatures as his brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Part of God's family.
That's beautiful.
This wasn't just environmentalism as we think about it today. This was a deep sense of interconnectedness.
Yeah.
With all of creation.
So we're not just talking about enjoying a walk in the woods.
No, not at all.
We're talking about like preaching to the birds.
Oh yeah, the story of...
Like in peace with a wolf that was terrorizing a town.
These stories sound like fairy tales.
They do.
But they really show his worldview, and how he was connected to all living things.
It's amazing. I mean, do you think this deep connection to nature stemmed from his choice to embrace poverty?
That's a good question.
Yeah, and detach from material possessions.
Yeah, were they like two sides of the same coin?
Right.
That's something to think about as we learn more.
Yeah, and this radical simplicity, this profound connection to nature, it resonated with people.
Yeah, it did.
Because people started to join him.
They wanted to be part of it.
They were drawn to his authenticity.
Right.
To his genuine love for God and creation.
So they saw that it was real.
Yeah, and that's how the Franciscan order came to be.
It formed organically.
It wasn't a power grab.
Right.
It just happened.
People were inspired.
Yeah.
It really shows the power of authenticity.
Right.
Living in alignment with your values.
Like he wasn't even seeking followers.
Right.
But he was living his truth.
But he became an example.
Yeah, and people were drawn to that.
Powerful example.
So even with this movement taking shape, it wasn't always smooth sailing.
Right.
As the Franciscan order grew, tensions started to arise.
Okay.
Because you had Francis's vision of radical poverty, and then you have this growing order that needed structure and rules.
So how do you maintain that initial vision?
Exactly.
As things get bigger and more complex.
Like, that's the question.
It's a tension we see throughout history.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. How do you keep the original idea pure?
Right.
When you have all these pressures?
And that's a question for all of us today, too.
Absolutely.
Whether it's in our own lives or in the organizations we're part of.
Right. How do we balance structure and freedom? How do we stay true to those original values?
Exactly.
So what happened with Francis?
Well, this tension ultimately led him to step down from leadership.
Wow.
He realized his strength was embodying the ideals.
Okay.
Not managing a complex organization.
Interesting.
So he found peace in returning to the simple life of a brother living his faith.
Sometimes true leadership is knowing when to let go.
Yeah. It's a good lesson.
Yeah, stepping back.
And it's a reminder that our greatest contribution might not be in holding a position of power,
right,
but in living the values that we believe in.
Yeah, leading by example.
Exactly. And while he may have stepped away from leadership, his influence continued to spread.
Yeah, people were still drawn to him.
People were still inspired by him.
Right.
His teachings continue to reach people, and his life continues to unfold in unexpected ways.
Okay, tell me more.
So this is where the story gets really interesting. We move into a period of immense suffering for Francis.
Yeah.
He receives the stigmata.
The wounds of Christ.
The wounds of Christ.
Wow.
And eventually he goes blind.
It's hard to imagine that level of suffering.
I know, it's hard to even fathom.
Physical and emotional pain.
Yeah.
But it seems like his spirit remained unbroken.
It really does. And there's this incredible story about his eye surgery.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
Back then, it involved cauterizing the eye with a hot iron.
Ouch.
And what does Francis do?
What does he do?
He thanks Brother Fire for its service.
Wow.
And urges it to be gentle.
That's amazing.
Such a powerful illustration of his worldview.
Yeah, he still saw the divine spark in everything.
Yeah, even in fire.
Even in fire, that's powerful.
It's remarkable, this level of acceptance and resilience, even in the face of such agonizing pain.
Incredible.
And it's during this time that he writes the Canticle of the Sun, which is this beautiful poem.
Celebrating all of creation.
Celebrating all of creation. Yeah. What a legacy.
A powerful legacy.
And in 1226,
okay,
after years of hardship and unwavering devotion, Francis passes away.
Okay.
Leaving behind a legacy that continues to resonate to this day.
Centuries later.
So we have this figure who began as a wealthy party boy.
Right.
And through these incredible experiences, transforms into a symbol of radical poverty, love for nature.
An unwavering faith.
Unwavering faith. It's a story that really makes you think about what truly matters, about the power of living your values and our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. And as we reflect on his life, it makes you wonder what parts of his journey resonate most with you.
That's a great question.
Yeah, what can we learn from his example?
Especially today in our modern world.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a question worth pondering because even centuries later, St. Francis's story continues to inspire us.
It does.
Challenge us. And invite us to examine our own values. And how we choose to live our lives.
So much to think about.
There really is, but we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
And there's still so much more to explore.
There is.
In St. Francis's life and teachings.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
We'll delve into those complexities and contradictions in just a moment.
Sounds good.
But first, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, what are your initial thoughts on St. Francis?
What stands out to you from his story so far?
We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive into the life of St. Francis of Assisi.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the life of St. Francis of Assisi. I'm glad you're still with us.
It's great to be back. And as we continue exploring his life, it's important to remember that, St. Francis, for all his simplicity, he wasn't a simplistic figure.
Right. We tend to think of saints as these perfect one-dimensional figures. But the more we dig into his story, we see the complexity.
It's the contradictions.
And the contradictions,
And I think that's what makes him so relatable.
Yeah.
So human.
It's those imperfections, it makes him more real.
It does.
Yeah. He wasn't this untouchable figure. He struggled. He made mistakes.
Yeah. And those experiences shaped him.
Yeah. They shaped his journey.
Just as much as his triumphs.
Absolutely. And, one thing that struck me was just how radical his approach to poverty was.
It was extreme.
Yeah. Was it realistic for others to follow in his footsteps?
That's the question.
Or was it a path that only he could walk?
Yeah, a lot of people have grappled with that over the centuries.
I bet.
His commitment to poverty.
Yeah.
Of a challenge to society.
It challenged the very fabric of society.
Yeah, it forced people to confront their own attachments.
To material wealth.
To material wealth, yeah.
Can you imagine the reactions he must have gotten?
Oh, I'm sure people were shocked.
Yeah.
This wasn't just giving up some luxuries.
Yeah.
This was a complete
upheaval,
of the norm.
Yeah.
He saw possessions as obstacles to spiritual freedom.
And he believed that true happiness came from detachment from the material world.
Exactly.
But isn't there a danger in idealizing such an extreme approach?
I mean, it's definitely not for everyone.
Right. Most of us can't just abandon all of our responsibilities.
Yeah, we can't all live as mendicants.
Right.
But it makes you think.
It does. It makes you question.
Yeah.
What do we really need?
Our relationship to possessions. What brings us fulfillment?
Yeah. Is it stuff or is it something more?
Exactly.
Yeah. What if we stripped away all the excess, all the things we think we need?
What would remain?
What would remain?
What would we discover about ourselves?
And those are questions that are just as relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
As they were back then.
Yeah. We live in a world of
constant consumption.
Constant consumption.
Where our value is measured by
what we own.
What we own, yeah.
How much we buy.
And his life serves as a powerful counterpoint to that.
He was the wealthiest man in Assisi.
And he chose to give it all up.
He did. And in doing so, he found freedom.
And inner peace.
Inner peace, yeah.
Which is something that so many of us are searching for.
We are.
And it wasn't just his views on poverty that challenged conventions.
Yeah, his interactions with people.
His interactions, were sometimes unconventional.
Unconventional.
Sometimes even eccentric.
That's right. He wasn't afraid to break with those social norms and expectations even within the church.
There's that story about him telling a brother who stuttered to preach half naked in the town square.
Oh, wow.
Not exactly the most sensitive approach.
Not really.
But then
what happened?
You see him recognizing his mistake.
Okay.
Running to the square himself.
Yeah.
Stripping off his own clothes.
He takes his place.
And preaches in the brother's place.
Wow, so he had this impulsiveness.
He did.
This childlike innocence.
Yeah, almost.
But then incredible empathy.
So much empathy.
Willingness to put himself in the other person's shoes.
It's that combination that's so fascinating.
It is.
He wasn't perfect.
But he never stopped growing.
Never stopped learning.
Never stopped learning, exactly.
Yeah, it's refreshing.
It is.
Because we tend to put saints on such high pedestals.
Right.
That we forget they were human, too.
And it's those imperfections.
Yeah.
Those moments of vulnerability
that
we really connect with.
Absolutely.
And his life reminds us that it's okay to stumble, to make mistakes.
We're all going to make mistakes.
As long as we learn from them.
And grow.
Yeah.
It's not about achieving perfection.
It's about the journey.
It's about the journey.
And for Francis, that journey was one of constant transformation. Stripping away those layers of societal conditioning.
Yeah.
To reveal his true essence.
Yeah, and that essence was one of
love, compassion.
Yeah, reverence for all creation.
That's what drew people to him.
It's incredible to think about.
I know.
Here's this man dressed in rags, begging for food, sleeping outdoors.
Yeah.
And yet people were just drawn to him.
Like moths to a flame.
Like moths to a flame.
So what was it about him?
What was it?
I think it was his authenticity.
Yeah.
He lived what he believed.
He embodied it.
His actions spoke louder than words.
And in a world that often feels so superficial, so focused on appearances.
Yeah.
That kind of authenticity.
That must have been refreshing.
Must have been so refreshing.
Yeah, it's like he tapped into this deep yearning that we all have.
A desire for something more.
More than wealth.
More than status.
More than stuff.
Exactly. He showed that true joy.
Yeah.
True fulfillment.
Comes from aligning your life with your values.
Aligning your life with your values.
Connecting with something bigger than yourself.
And his message continues to resonate today.
It does.
I mean, think about the growing interest in minimalism.
Yeah.
Simple living.
Connecting with nature.
Yeah, reconnecting with nature. These are all themes.
That echoes St. Francis.
That echo his teachings. Yeah, it's fascinating.
It is.
How his life, which took place so long ago.
Centuries ago.
Speaks so directly to our contemporary concerns.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the timelessness of these truths.
Yeah.
The power of simplicity, compassion, connection.
Well, even though we may not be able to replicate his life exactly.
Right.
Are there ways that we can integrate some of those values?
Those Franciscan values?
The Franciscan spirit, yeah. Into our own modern lives?
That's a great question and one we can explore further.
Okay.
But I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
What parts of his life have resonated most with you?
It's a good question to ponder. We'll be back in a moment to wrap up our deep dive into the life of St. Francis of Assisi. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on quite a journey.
We have.
Exploring the life of St. Francis.
Yeah, fascinating guy.
And as we kind of move into this final chapter of his story, I think it's worth considering, you know, the legacy that he left behind.
His enduring legacy.
Yeah, and it's interesting how somebody who lived so long ago could still feel so relevant today.
I know, it's amazing.
His emphasis on caring for creation, recognizing the interconnectedness of all living things.
Like he was ahead of his time.
It's like he was a proto-environmentalist centuries before.
Yeah.
You know, anyone was really thinking about that.
His love for nature, it wasn't just about appreciating the beauty.
Right.
It was about our responsibility to care for it.
Yeah, to live in harmony with it.
To live in harmony.
And that sense of responsibility seems to extend beyond the natural world to our fellow human beings. He saw this inherent dignity in every person.
Yeah, he did.
Regardless of social standing or material wealth.
It didn't matter to him.
Didn't matter.
You see that in his interactions with everyone.
Yeah.
From the poet to the beggar.
Treated everybody the same.
With respect and compassion.
That's such a powerful message.
It is.
Especially today.
Yeah.
You know, our world often feels so divided.
So divided.
And he's really calling for this recognition of our shared humanity.
The shared humanity, yeah.
To bridge those gaps that separate us.
Right.
And build a more inclusive and compassionate society.
And it's not just about these grand gestures.
Right.
You know, like changing the whole world.
Or sweeping social change.
It's about the everyday stuff.
Yeah, the small acts.
Small acts of kindness.
Treating each encounter as an opportunity.
As an opportunity.
To embody those values.
Yeah, to actually live it.
So it's not about becoming a saint.
Right.
In the literal sense.
Not in the traditional sense.
But it's about finding ways to bring that Franciscan spirit. Into our own lives.
How can we do that?
How can we do that? Exactly.
What are some practical things?
Yeah, maybe it's volunteering in our communities. Yeah. Maybe it's advocating for environmental causes or just being more mindful.
Being more mindful, yeah.
Of how we treat others in our daily interactions.
Exactly.
Makes you think about the ripple effects of our actions.
Our actions have an impact.
Even the smallest acts of kindness can have a profound impact.
Absolutely.
On those around us.
And when we all do that,
you
know, those small acts, multiplied by millions of people.
Yeah, it creates a shift.
It creates a shift.
Towards a more compassionate and just world.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
It is.
To think that one person can have such an impact.
So long ago.
Centuries later.
Inspiring positive change.
That's the power of a life.
Yeah.
Lived in alignment with your values.
Yeah.
That's St. Francis.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the life of St. Francis, we're left with this question.
What's the question?
What will you take away from his story? How will you carry his message forward?
Into your own life.
Yeah. What small steps can you take today?
What can you do?
To embody those values.
Of compassion.
Simplicity and connection.
Because maybe, yes, maybe.
Yeah.
If we embrace a little bit of that Franciscan spirit, we can create a world.
That's a little kinder.
A little kinder.
A little more just.
A little more just.
A little more connected.
To the beauty and wonder of all creation.
That's a beautiful vision.
It is.
Worth striving for.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.